snow fell harder than the forecast promised that Christmas Eve, turning the city streets of Minneapolis into quiet white corridors where even the loudest regrets seemed muffled. Nathan Caldwell stood alone in the glass-walled lobby of his corporate tower long after the last employees had gone home, the reflections of holiday lights from nearby buildings flickering like memories he tried not to touch. He was among the business magazines called ruthless, brilliant, untouchable, yet on that night he felt none of it. He felt the weight of an empty penthouse, the absence of a wife he had buried 3 winters earlier, and the ache of being a father who had learned how to provide everything except warmth. Christmas Eve had become something he survived, not something he celebrated, and he was counting the minutes until midnight so the day would finally be over. Before the story continues, take a moment and ask yourself this. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the quiet miracles that can happen when strangers cross paths, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this only grow when hearts stay open. Nathan was reaching for his coat when he noticed a small figure standing just outside the building's revolving doors, her red jacket too thin for the cold, her knit hat pulled down almost to her eyes. She looked impossibly small against the towering skyscraper, like a misplaced ornament left behind after the city had finished decorating itself. He assumed she was waiting for a ride, maybe a distracted parent circling the block, and turned away. But something tugged at him, the way her gloved hands kept smoothing the front of her jacket as if rehearsing courage. When he finally looked again, she was staring directly at him through the glass, eyes wide with a seriousness no child should have to carry. Her name was Grace Miller, though Nathan would learn that later. In that moment, she was simply a little girl who pushed through the door and stepped into the warmth, leaving a trail of melting snow behind her. She did not cry, did not look afraid. She looked determined in a way that made his chest tighten. She walked straight up to him, stopped a few feet away, and looked up as if he were the only person in the world who could help her. In her small hands, she carried nothing, but her presence felt heavy with a request she had rehearsed in her head 100 times. Grace lived with her mother, Sarah, in a narrow apartment a few miles from the city center, in a neighborhood where Christmas lights were scarce and hope was rationed carefully. Sarah had been sick for months, the kind of sickness that drained savings and optimism at the same time, and Grace had learned early how to make herself smaller, quieter, easier. This year there was no Christmas tree. There were no decorations, no presents, no laughter drifting from room to room. But there was a mother who smiled bravely every night and a little girl who believed that a tree, even for one night, could make everything feel normal again. Grace had seen the trees lined up outside office buildings and stores, tall and bright and full of promises, and she had decided that if she asked nicely enough, someone might let her borrow one. Nathan listened as she explained, her words tumbling over each other in soft urgency, and something in him cracked open. She did not ask for money. She did not ask for gifts. She asked if she could borrow a tree, just until Christmas morning, so her mom could wake up and feel like everything was okay. She promised she would bring it back. She promised to be careful. She promised things no child should have to promise. Nathan, a man who negotiated million-dollar deals without blinking, found himself unable to breathe properly as the weight of her hope settled between them. He had a tree. A perfect one, professionally decorated, standing untouched in the corner of his penthouse, ordered by an assistant who thought it was what a CEO should have. Nathan had not even turned the lights on. The tree meant nothing to him, and that realization stung more than he expected. He saw his own son, Caleb, at 8 years old, standing beside a tree years ago, his late wife Rebecca laughing in the background. He saw how far he had drifted from the men he used to be. And in that moment, Christmas Eve stopped being something to endure and became something that demanded a choice. The drive across town was quiet, the city glowing softly under fresh snow. Grace sat in the back seat, hands folded, watching the lights pass by as if afraid the moment would disappear if she blinked too long. Nathan followed her directions to a building that had seen better decades, its stairwell smelling faintly of old paint and winter coats. He carried the tree himself, refusing help, feeling each step in his knees and in his heart. The apartment was small, but clean, and filled with the quiet resilience of people who did their best with very little. Sarah Miller looked up from the couch, confusion turning into disbelief as she saw the tree, then into tears she had been holding back all season. The hours that followed changed Nathan in ways boardrooms never had. He stayed, not because he was asked, but because leaving felt wrong. He helped string the lights, placed a simple star on top, and watched as Grace danced around the room, her laughter filling spaces that had been empty for too long. Sarah apologized again and again for the trouble, for the mess, for accepting help from a stranger, and Nathan realized how rarely he had let himself be needed in such a simple, human way. They shared a modest meal, and for the first time in years, Nathan did not feel alone on Christmas Eve. When he finally returned to his penthouse, the silence felt different. It no longer echoed. It rested. He stood by the window and looked out at the city, realizing that success had never been the thing that made him feel alive. It was connection. It was showing up. Over the weeks that followed, he found reasons to visit the neighborhood, reasons that turned into commitments. He helped Sarah find better medical care. He arranged flexible work for himself so he could be present for Caleb in ways he had not been. He learned Grace's favorite books, her love for drawing, her fierce hope that things could get better even when they were hard. Christmas morning came and went, but its impact lingered. The borrowed tree stayed. It was never returned to the corner of Nathan's penthouse. It belonged where it was, surrounded by people who needed it more. And as winter turned into spring, something unexpected happened. Nathan's world expanded. His grief softened. His son found laughter again. And a little girl who once begged to borrow a tree became part of a family that grew not by obligation, but by choice.